Today we are going to take the next step from just playing with the fractions to doing a bit of math with them. You will need your math folder, and we should have lots of different patterns in here that you can go back and be looking at as you are reviewing skills that you are supposed to know. You need to find the next 2 blank pages, and you are going to leave the one on the left-hand side blank. And on the right-hand side, we are going to do adding fractions. We're going to do just a few today, and I need to point out some important ideas as we do that. I'm also going to use some models. So, we are going to start out with one that is familiar to us, half. So we should be able to see our way to what happens if you take 1/2 and add it to another half. We know this, but let's make sure the math matches. 1/2 plus 1/2 equals. Now, we know 2 halves equal a whole thing, but we want to look at the fractional part first and learn some important ideas from there, because very often we look at these and we say, oh, 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. My answer is 2/4. If I have 1/2 and I put that with 1 more half, I get an amount that is 1/4, 1/4, 2/4. Do you see a problem? Is 1/2 plus 1 more half the same amount as 2/4? No, this is not true. Why not? Well, stop and think about it. When you add half and half, the 2 on the bottom just tells you the size of the pieces. So I do want you to label this size of pieces on the bottom. The bottom number of a fraction is called a denominator, but just to keep things focused where I want them to focus, we'll call this the bottom number. So the size of these pieces, these are halves. It takes 2 of the halves to make a whole. That is why they are halves, because half is when I take my whole thing and split it into 2 pieces. So the denominator shows the size of the pieces. Just because I'm putting 1/2 together with 1 more half does not change the fact that they are halves. Doesn't change the size of the pieces. It just changes how many of them I have. So in this case, I started with 1/2. I'm going to put 1 more half with it. That will give me 2 halves. Definitely not 2/4. Now, we also know if I have 2 halves, that means I have a whole thing. But for now, we're just going to keep this as 2 halves. Why? Well, because I want to add another step to it. So, first of all, would you say that this amount is the same, the purple is the same as the pink? Hopefully you see that it is. So we're going to look at the purple all as one piece, not as the separate pieces. So this is going to be 1 more half. So we're going to take our 2 halves and add 1 more half to it. Is that going to give us 3/4? Well, if we hook them all together, there's what we just added. Here's 1/4, here's 2/4, here's 3/4. Is this anywhere close to the same amount? Certainly not. So we cannot say that 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 3/4. We've changed the size of the pieces. You must always keep your size of pieces the same. When you're adding and subtracting fractions, since we have halves, we're going to keep talking about halves. How many 1/2 do we have? We have these two, plus we have one more. That means we have 1, 2, 3 1/2. We are going to take that one more step and say, what if we have our 3/2 plus one more half? So we have these 3/2 already. Let's add in one more half. Well, hopefully you can see that's going to be 1/2, 2/2, 3/2, 4/2. Have we changed the size of the pieces? Nope. We are talking halves and we are counting how many of those halves there are. Now you'll see these keep on flipping over to the tenths, so let's talk about that a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. Isn't 5 out of 10 the same thing as half? That's why I can use this size piece, 5 1/10, and still be adding it to halves. So technically, another way I could write this is 5/10 and 5 more tenths and 1/2 and 1/2. The only way I could add this without figuring out, oh my goodness, all these different sized pieces, is to realize, okay, 5/10 is really 1/2. It's really 1/2. Then I add all of my halves together and still get 4/2. It is important that you note that the bottom shows you the size of the pieces, and since the bottom is showing you the size of the pieces, does it change when you add them? No. Size of pieces does not change when added. But can we add if the pieces are different sizes? We couldn't until we switched our pieces so that they were the same size. That will be important later. That we're not going to write anything down about. But you need to have this recorded in your folder. Now then, we are going to move on to the assignment for today. Yes, you'll be doing some practicing online, but I want to show you the assignment in this same video. So you will have to practice online, and then you will come back to do page 621 according to these directions. So first of all, it wants you to write each sum. That I agree with. Sum just means add. So they've written this direction two different ways. Simplest form. We need to ignore that for today. So I do want you to circle it. I want you to write yourself a note. Ignore for today. We will come back and work at that later. There is another little bit here. I want you to decompose number 5, number 7, and number 10. Now don't freak out. By decomposing, I mean I want you to think about 2/9. The size of these pieces are 9ths. How many of them do I have? Well, I have 1/9 and I have one more 9th. So that decomposes the 2/9. And I am going to add to that 1/9 and another 9th. That just gets me to 2/9. Another 9th. So here's my 3/9 added to my 2/9. So this is what I mean by decomposing, and then you just add it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 9ths. You don't have to draw it, But number 7 and number 10, I want you to decompose them as well. So by decomposing, I want you to show me 1/6 plus another 6th plus 1/6 plus another 6th, and then get your final answer. Final answers also go up on the line, and they need to be circled, because there will be lots and lots of work that we do with fractions going forward, and so whenever you get to a final answer, you need to circle it. So you must decompose number 5, number 7, and number 10, but you must complete all of page 621. All right? So remember, the bottom number tells you the size of the pieces. The size of the pieces will never change. So you have 5 1/8 pieces, 3 more 1/8 pieces. When you put those eighths together, they will still be eighths, but how many of them will you have? You have 1/6 piece, you have another 1/6 piece. When you put them together, what size will they be and how many will you have? 12, 13, and 14 require you to think a little bit. For number 12, you will have to substitute a fraction instead of the square. The square they just are calling unknown. So 1/3 plus what amount will get you 2 pieces that are thirds? 5/12 plus 4 1/12 pieces. Now this one's a bit tricky, and in fact I'm just going to cross this one out. We are going to call it 12th pieces. So how many 1/12 pieces? When we talk about simplest form, or if you remember it from 4th grade, this would make sense, but right now just change that to 12ths. If you have 3/10 plus 4 of some size pieces and you end up with 7 pieces that are 10th sizes, what was the size of these pieces? So these last 3, you just have to figure out what makes sense given what they are asking. That is the assignment. Don't forget to go to the next section on today's Google form and do the online adding practice before you do page 621. 621 is your homework. Thank you.